everyone and welcome back to another video. I know it's been about 2 weeks since my last video, but I am back with a very fun video. I think I did the exact same video last year with my dad, which if you haven't checked out, do check it out. I'll put it up there. But I'm going to name this series because I've been trying to figure out a name for it because it's kind of hard to name it. Oddly enough, I'm going to call it Decades Ending In, and this one is Decades Ending in 4. Since we are in 2024 now, I thought I would do a little rewind and tell you my favourite albums of the past few decades which have ended in 4. So I'm going to start with 74 and I'm even going to end with 2024 of my favourite albums so far this year, but we'll get onto that in a sec. Today's album of the day is Fear Inoculum by Tool. I really got back into Tool recently because I went to go see them on Monday night at the O2 Arena. Let me know if you were there because it was an absolutely fantastic show. They never miss. It was just so good. The set list, they opened with Jambi, which is on 10,000 Days, and I just wasn't expecting that because I purposefully didn't look the set list up online beforehand. Usually I do that because I'm a bit cheeky like that. It's not very cheeky, I think a lot of people do that, but since Tool are my favourite band and I knew they weren't going to be playing the same set list as they did a couple of years ago, I thought, let's get surprised, and they opened with Jambi. They even played Rosetta Stoned, which is also from 10,000 Days. They did a bunch of stuff from, obviously, Fear Inoculum, and they did a little bit from the first album, which, that's fucking brilliant. That is actually the latest release from Tool, which came out in 2019. So let's begin with our first year being 1974. So 1974 is a very good year for music, not just for progressive rock, but just as a whole. You know, there's a lot of great stuff that went on that year. So I couldn't pick just one album for this year because it was too difficult. The first pick, I finally found it. My copy of Red by King Crimson. I think in a couple of videos ago I talked about how I couldn't find my copy. I found it. Thank God I found it. But this is my first pick for 1974. This is my favourite King Crimson record. If you've been keeping up with the channel for the past couple of years, I think it's more than a couple of years now, you'll know that this is my favourite album of theirs and the one that I think they just reached their peak when they made this record. It is brilliant start to finish, and if you are new here, check out this album. It is absolutely brilliant. It's a progressive rock masterpiece. It's just one that everyone needs to listen to at some point. It's just got everything that you could possibly want out of an album, so definitely check that one out if you haven't, and if you have, then you know that this album is amazing. And my second pick, of course, is The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis. This is their concept record, which is a double album as well. I picked this one mainly because of how nostalgic I felt listening to it. I know obviously I wasn't around when it came out, but I re-listened to it like last week and I forgot how good it was, and that's actually what gave me the idea to make this video. So thank you to this album. And there's so many wonderful themes like musically in this album, and I think same with the King Crimson, there's something in there for everyone, and there's just so many nice moments on this album. I think my favourite of this is probably Carpet Crawlers. Just love that song. And I also love the little interludes as well, which are like the 1-2 minute tracks which lead into the longer tracks. But yeah, fantastic album. Let's move on to 1984. So this one was a bit easier than 1974 because I knew which album I wanted to do for this year, and the album that I have picked for 1984 is Ride the Lightning by Metallica. One of my favourite bands ever. I've seen them live like 4 times at this point, and this is still my favourite album of theirs, mainly also because Cliff Burton was still in the band at this point, rest in peace. And this is just a fantastic record. I don't think there are any skips on this album. I listen to this one, I'll never skip. But it's definitely one of the albums which defined my love of metal when I was growing up, and it had me, you know, it had a grip on me for such a long time, especially when I just first discovered Metallica. I was always going back to the songs on this album, and if you haven't listened to it, I don't even think I need to say that because I think most people have probably heard this album already, but if you haven't, there is just some of the best bass work on this album, and actually Cliff Burton was one of the people that inspired me to pick up the instrument, and yeah, Everything about this album is amazing. I love hearing the live versions of the songs on this album as well. Like, I think this was just the best that they got, in my opinion. Let's move on to 1994. Similarly with 1974, this one was also a bit more difficult because I always see the 90s decade as a whole as, you know, guitar music came back, there was a lot of interesting things going on in multiple different corners of music, and again, similarly with the 70s, I've got two albums here because I just couldn't pick just one. The first one I picked was The Division Bell by Pink Floyd. I think of this album weirdly as like a comeback album because I wasn't really big into their stuff in the 80s, and hearing The Division Bell just made me think they can write really good material despite Roger Waters not actually being a part of this album and just part of the band in general at this point. It's got High Hopes on it, which is one of my favourite Pink Floyd songs, and I just think the production as well is fantastic, and yeah, their songwriting game was really great. I mean, lyricism and everything, fantastic album. Love The Division Bell, and I don't think I'm the only one that thinks that as well. The other one I picked was Nine Inch Nails' The Downward Spiral. When I first listened to this album, I didn't really understand why people liked it so much. I liked bits and pieces from it, but I was thinking, people rate this album and rate Nine Inch Nails so highly, I don't understand why. They have some really good songs, but then I re-listened to it like 3-4 more times and I was like, okay, now I understand why people are really rating this album. It's just got some of the best music I've ever heard on it. I mean, for me, my favourite track, I can't actually pick one from this album because it's one of those ones that I'll listen to and it will just change with the day. Like, I'll be like, oh, I like this one on this day, this one on that day. But as a whole, I'd say the one that I consistently go back to from this album is A Warm Place, which is one of the kind of interludes, and I believe it's completely instrumental, and it's such a lovely piece of music. I think everyone in their lifetime needs to hear that track. I think everyone in their lifetime needs to hear this album. It's experimental, it's heavy, it's just out there, and it's revolutionary in my opinion. Let's go into the next decade with 2004. So 2004 was actually a very easy one, similarly with the 80s. This one was so easy because when I was sitting and compiling my list, I could only think of one album that I'd even want to mention, and that is Riser Riser by Rammstein, who are one of my favourite bands ever. I don't know if you can tell, but this album is probably growing to be my favourite of theirs because of the variety on this album. There's so many different things going on in this album, if that makes sense. There's so many different ideas. You've got your more ballady kind of songs, you've got your heavy hitting songs, which is kind of all of them really, the more like riff orientated. It's a masterpiece, it's Rammstein at their best, and yeah, if you haven't heard it, do it right now. Literally, I will forgive you if you clicked off this video and decided to listen to this album. I would forgive you and I'd be alright with it completely. Let's move into 2014. So I don't actually have the album to show for my 2014 pick. I actually had a couple in mind. I really did try to have like one pick for each decade, but with a few of them it was a bit more difficult than the others. But I managed to pick one for 2014, and I'll show up the album cover here since I don't have it, and that is My World by Code Orange. Hold up just a minute. This is post-recording Neve coming to you from 5 minutes after I finished recording, and I messed up the name of the album. The name of the album is actually I Am King. The name of the song is My World. I've written in my notes My World, which is really stupid because I should have just double checked. I'm gonna keep referring to it as My World, but apologies to people. It's called I Am King, not My World. Code Orange are a band I got into fairly-ish recently. I'd say in the last few months, maybe beginning of the year I started listening to them. And they've grown to be one of my favourite current bands. Their last album, which was The Above, a lot of people didn't really rate it all that much, but I really liked it. But that was last year. We're talking about 2014. This is My World. This is Code Orange probably at one of their heaviest moments as a band in their career. There's some just really amazing riffs, amazing breakdowns, amazing ideas going on. Something I really love about Code Orange is that they're constantly breaking the boundaries of music. They're constantly doing something different. Each of their records that I've listened to is completely different to the last, and I absolutely love bands that do that because it means that everything is not the same. You're going to get a different feel with each album. And this album I go to, it's not even really that long. I think it's just about half an hour, a bit more. But I usually listen to this when I'm on my runs because it's really good to listen to more like fast-paced music when I'm running. And yeah, just some brilliant songs on this album, and it's just a great album. So definitely check that one out. If you haven't checked out Code Orange as a whole, definitely do that. I'm actually seeing them on Friday. So excited. I have literally been waiting ever since I booked the tickets. I've been like patiently waiting for the 14th of June to come, and I'm very excited about that. Let's move in to 2024. What's going on there? So obviously we're only in June. We're halfway into the year. There's no time for me to be like, this is the best album of the year, because we've still got another 6 months to go, 6 months more of music. But I thought I would tell you my favorite albums of this year so far. I've picked 2, both completely different to the other, which is what we like, which is what we love to hear. And yeah, so the first one is the latest release from Knocked Loose, who are a hardcore band, and this is their latest album. It's quite a long title, bear with me. You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To, and I believe this album's only like 27 minutes. It's very short, but it literally did not feel like 27 minutes. It just like sped through, and I enjoyed every moment of this album. It's still got a couple of tracks on it which are still trying to grow on a bit, but I mean, it's got Suffocate, which features Poppy. Her performance on that song is just crazy good. Obviously we have the Blinding Faith. That was, I think, the first single they released from this. Sit and Mourn, which finishes the album, is probably my favorite. It's got a load of really great tracks on it, and it's just fast paced, it's heavy as hell, and I love it. I love Knocked Loose, and you should listen to it because it's really good. And my last pick for today, as I said, this is a complete 180 to the Knocked Loose release, and that is the latest release from Billie Eilish, which is Hit Me Hard and Soft. Bet you weren't expecting that one, but this album, I've re-listened to it so many times. I love every song on this album. I love, similarly with Code Orange, I can't believe I'm comparing Code Orange to Billie Eilish, but I am. Each of her releases have been different, and there's a different vibe with each one. This one has a more like indie kind of feel to it. There's a lot like of guitar-based tracks. Her voice is even kind of different on some of the tracks. There's some moments where it's not just like kind of soft vocal, it's a bit more hard-hitting, it's a bit more intense, even kind of gritty at times. And her songwriting is just so good on this album. I'm not ashamed to say that I am quite a big Billie Eilish fan. But from this album, my favourite is probably The Greatest. I really love Wildflower's a good one, Birds of a Feather. It's just a fantastic album. Please do listen to it. And that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your favourite albums from each of these decades. I'd love to see what you guys love and love to listen to. It's a really fun little challenge that I gave myself. I can't wait to do the same thing next year. Just a few things before I love and leave you today. All my social medias are in the description. My Instagram, my Twitter, I still call it Twitter. And the Progner Discord server, which you can join, and we just talk about music. To be fair, I have not really been active on it recently, just because dealing with personal stuff at the moment. But it's really chill, it's really fun. We talk about music, talk about vinyl, whatever. If people do want more vinyl related content, do let me know, because I love making vinyl content. I have also got a couple of singles which I have released on Spotify under the name Rap Venom. I released a couple of covers. One of them is a Spiritbox cover, the other is a Deftones cover. So if you're interested in either of those bands, or if you just want to support my musical adventures, then all of that is in the description below. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.